Hello, everybody. This is Brett Davis at the Brett Davis Podcast Show. Today, I'm honored to have a gentleman that I've been hearing a lot of good things about, and I've been hearing things about him from his ex-girlfriends. This is Brett Askren. Brett Askren, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
So, what is it you don't do? Because you're an author. You give back to the community, which is you have worked with people that are homeless, of course, gentlemen.
Yep.
You're a real estate investor.
Yep.
What is it you don't do? I mean, it sounds like you have a very busy schedule.
I do. I mean, my plate now, my full time is real estate investing, along with a little other things. But there's plenty I don't do for sure. And the biggest thing, I have good support around me that helps me do a lot of stuff. So it's not just me.
Well, that's what we were just talking about a little bit before. So let's start with you. Where were you raised at? Where were you born?
Yep. So a small town in Kansas. So Holton, Kansas. If anybody knows where Topeka, the capital of Kansas, north of Topeka, about 20 miles, population. When I grew up there is 3,200. So I think it's maybe 3,400 at this point. So very small town, but born and raised Kansas and diehard Chiefs fan.
Go Chiefs.
Yeah.
The O line was not protecting our quarterback.
Oh man, that was brutal.
It was like they were mad at him.
It was brutal to watch.
Well, it wasn't. I heard two of the main offensive players, and right away I could see something was off. I'm not an expert, but I played football in the past, and I played line. So I mean, I looked at it and I'm like, these guys are not blocking for this guy.
Yeah, no, he was scrambling the entire game. It was a tough one, but.
So you're in Kansas, and of course, there's no place like home. You're kicking your heels together.
I've only heard that once before.
What's that?
I said I've only heard that once.
Oh, good. So that's not too bad. So I'm not too redundant like I usually am. Like my wife says, I repeat myself a lot. So you're in Kansas. What were your dreams then? When did you start to think about being self-employed, being an entrepreneur? I mean, I think it's something you're born with, right?
Well, you would think that. So I come from, and I just had this conversation yesterday with someone because we were talking about entrepreneurship and how it kind of started with me. Like my whole family, my dad was your just hard ass working 9 to 5, had the steady job, did whatever he needed to do to provide for us. My mom worked at the school. And so entrepreneurship, like in my entire family, was non-existent. Nobody really was. My grandfather had some like side hustles. He worked for the railroad for 30, 40, 50 years. But he did woodworking on the side. That was probably the extent of entrepreneurship anybody in our family, I think, probably had. And so for me, not really sure. My brother and I started when we grew up mowing lawns in the neighborhood. And so that kind of, I guess, kick-started it for me. But even going through high school and starting college, the goal at that point for me, because I grew up playing sports, that's all we had in Kansas. It was sports, everything. And I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to coach. And so I didn't think really too much of entrepreneurship in high school, even as I started college, until I had a couple of buddies in the mortgage business and saw them making a ton of money, and just had different. They were just living a different lifestyle that at that point I realized that that's what I wanted. I also had early on, obviously being a teacher and a coach, wearing a suit and dressing up wasn't always necessarily something you would do, but I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted a job or a career where I could dress up and wear a suit and tie and go to the office. Like that was, for whatever reason, I just had that in my mind as well. And eventually that's what kind of led me into, I started a mortgage company, but I went to college to be a teacher, tried it a couple of semesters, hated it. School was never for me, didn't enjoy it. Took some time off, went back to school to get a marketing degree, hated it, dropped out. That's when I started my mortgage company, kind of after that second try of college, thinking that's what I needed to do because everybody was doing it at the time. And it's college is great, but it's not for everybody. It wasn't for me.
You got a bachelor's degree in marketing?
No, I never finished.
You know, a lot of the great entrepreneurs never do. So the other question I have, so you were in college and then you thought, well, I'm just not connecting with this. And so then the mortgage business, you decided to start that.
Yep.
How long did you have that for?
Close to 11 years. So I had a buddy that was in it. And again, I had a lunch meeting with him and he was dressing the part that like I envisioned myself at one point being. I was like, that's it. And I didn't know nothing about mortgages, but he dressed the part. And then as we talked about the business, I was like, didn't seem too hard to get into it. And so I ended up working for a company that he knew that was hiring, and learned the business with about 6 months. And then doesn't take rocket science for the mortgage industry. And so learned the business, and then I ended up just starting my own about 6 to 8 months after that. And then I had mine for about 11 years. And I had a pretty decent operation for half of that time. And then I scaled it way back to just a couple people kind of after the whole 08, kind of 07, 08 housing crisis kind of happened. I had to rearrange some things at that point. But yeah, I had it for about 11 years.
You probably learned a lot of different things having that business. You probably normally wouldn't have learned in college.
100%. I mean, it was, and that's, I'm a firm believer now looking back. I'm 42. I started that, gosh, that was 23, 24.
Wow.
So early on, and I never really started a business at that type of business and that really had structure, and that where I needed to get licensed and I needed to have an office and all that stuff. And so I didn't know anything about it. I just, which was probably good that I didn't, and I had no fear, and just I learned as I made the mistakes, because I made plenty, and I still make mistakes, but I look at it more now as it's just, it's the price you pay to learn, and I didn't get that. Those things I wouldn't have learned in college, and you can't, and until they fix that piece of the education to reality and real life stuff.
Because when it hits your pocketbook and you have to pay the mortgage or the rent that month or your car payment, and you get your utilities, not to say that going to college is a bad thing.
Correct.
It's just a little more of a reality check.
100%. And I think I think college taught me a lot of great things. I'm glad I went and attempted. I just was never good at school. I'd never enjoyed it. And I would never steer anybody away from going,
sure,
if that's what they want. But do I think it's necessary to be successful? Absolutely not.
I agree 100%. I know a lot of very successful people that never finished college or never went to college. So when did you after you got out of the mortgages, did you have any idea what you were going to do next?
Yeah. So so when I first got a mortgage, that's when I started investing in real estate. So I kind of did that at that time, it was kind of a hobby. I didn't know anything about investing in real estate like I do now, to the extent of what I do now. But that's how I started investing in real estate. And then kind of as the whole mortgage piece kind of started dwindling, and I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. And there were different things. I was making it more difficult, and I don't know. I wasn't enjoying it. I always told myself, anytime I start to not enjoy something, I either one, need to just completely get out of it, or find someone to replace me to run and operate that business fully to where I don't have to think about it at all. Because I don't know, nothing with things that I've done. That's just something I've learned for me, that I'm just wasting time and I'm not putting 110% in it. And that's not fair to, whether it's a service or product I'm providing, doesn't matter. Whoever's buying that or on the other side of it isn't getting the full capacity of what I should be putting out. And so I got out of that. During that time frame, I hired a life coach, actually, probably 2009, 10, roughly, because I got out of the mortgage business right about 2011, a little before 2011, right around there. But I hired a life coach and was just trying to figure out like what's next and what direction do I want to go. And I went to college to want to be a coach. I always wanted to coach. And so coach basketball, that's what I grew up playing. And so that's why I was going into teaching. And so our life coach just kind of helped me figure some things out. I had a lot going on, and I needed some help and some guidance, and to be able to talk to someone that I could just talk openly and not be afraid or scared with any of it. And so that led me to kind of how I met Yvette. I started a coaching program that was all about feeling good about yourself and building confidence. It was called Thrive with Confidence at the time, and it was took people through a whole series of, because to me, having confidence and feeling good about yourself there's a lot of parts to that, and it starts with the mindset, obviously, but also your health and how you dress and how you feel, how you carry yourself, and not really how other people see you, but how you see yourself in the mirror. And so I created a program kind of as I exited the mortgage business into that. And then that's what spun off into also a nonprofit, to where I ran this program in men's homeless shelters, women's homeless shelter. And then also we did a kids at risk nonprofit as well. We had my program in that. So that kind of, from the mortgage business, I spun into that. And that kind of fulfilled my whole coaching passion that I had, and was trying to get into 15 years prior, just a different type of coaching. And it was just working with individuals, adults, and then the nonprofit side was just a whole nother business in itself. And so that was kind of the direction I went after the mortgage business.
You know, the type of coaching you're talking about, I'm a coach. I say I'm not anymore. I'm retired, but I was a coach for many, many years.
Nice.
In the industry.
Okay.
I try to get away from it. I still get called occasionally, but one thing I can tell you is the mindset to be an athlete and the mindset to be a CEO, they're almost the same.
Yep.
There's just a few little changes, but not much.
Yep. I 100% agree. And I think in my book, I wrote the analogy just with being a leader. Obviously, as a CEO, you're a leader, whether you want to be or not. That's the role you're taking on. But playing sports, like I played basketball and I was the point guard. So just kind of the quarterback, you are the leader of that team. So I think like growing up and playing that position and in basketball, that has helped me just with business for sure.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I totally agree with that.
So if anybody's tuning in right now, I'm talking to Matt Askren, and he's got a book called Make Your Move. That's your newest book, right?
Yeah, my newest and only book. Yeah.
So tell us about the book.
Yeah. So it really is catered around my investing in real estate. So I invest heavily out of state. in real estate. That's what I do full time now is invest.
So are you buying houses that are in default? Are you buying fixers? Are you continuing to hold on to them, or are you selling in them?
Yeah, both. So I buy very distressed properties. I buy typically the worst of some of the worst in the areas that I buy, and rehab them, and then I hold a significant amount myself, but I also started to sell some of them as well. So I'll sell them turnkey, because like my main market I invest in is Cleveland, and I'm 2,000 miles away. So
Actually, I've been to Cleveland. It's a nice city.
yeah, it is. And so like I invest in my whole niche that I created for myself, and I don't advise too many to do what I do this far away unless you're doing it full time and unless you have a team and a foundation. Like I travel there every month. I have a amazing team that operates everything, and contractors and property managers. But going there, I cater to lower income affordable housing. That's what I want. That's what I enjoy. I've had rental properties in Kansas on golf courses that, and I talk about it in my book, that people think because it's nicer neighborhoods, higher properties, higher rents, you're going to have better tenants. My worst tenant out of all my properties, I've owned hundreds of rentals, is the property that I had on a golf course that you would think on paper, this family looked amazing. And trust me, I understand circumstances, life happens, things happen. I had plenty of things happen as well. But these tenants unfortunately ended up being a nightmare for me. I had a mortgage on the property that 2000, they were paying, I think they were paying $2,500 in rent. I had a mortgage of $1,900 to $2,000. They didn't pay for 6 months. And so that's a decent amount of cost that I have to basically carry until I figure out to get them evicted. I couldn't evict them for 6 months. And so my point with that is I realized that wasn't the type of rentals that I wanted to go after. Because it was just, to me, it was a lose-lose situation. I didn't feel really great about that property really renting to them, whereas I feel I have a bigger impact now with what I'm doing in Cleveland and the neighborhoods I'm buying and rehabbing. The cost is obviously a lot less if I have to carry a mortgage for a few months. I mean, we're talking properties I buy, I'm all in at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So it's a whole different business kind of model than what I had in Kansas for briefly. And so the whole book is really just talking about, because now I get a lot of people that reach out that want to invest out of state, because here in California, obviously prices, it's very hard for it to make sense for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have a couple $100,000 to buy a property and hope that it cash flows. Can it work? Yes. I know plenty of people that have rentals and buy rentals in California, and flips. Same thing. You're putting in a couple $100,000 to make deals work. And so in the Midwest has drawn a ton of attention from California investors, and even newbie investors that want to get involved. And so my whole thing with investing is, and just to make your move, is you have to take action. You have to because most people get caught up with the whole analysis paralysis and scared to take that jump, and you won't learn, you won't make that mistake if you don't just start. Because I can't, and I don't do coaching with the real estate stuff, but I mean, I help try to educate and help people as much as I can. But at the end of the day, you have to pull the trigger, and you have to figure it out as you go, because there's never going to be two same scenarios when you buy a piece of real estate. There's certain principles and things you can follow and can guide you, but every project's going to be different. And so my whole book is just talking about just that, taking action. I'm just a firm believer in taken action, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be real estate, just in general. And I've started multiple businesses, and I've had some successful ones, and I've had more that have failed. But I've never feared failure, and I've never been afraid of making a mistake. That's part of the journey for me. And so, yeah, the whole book just talks mostly about just kind of investing in real estate and kind of how I've built my team and how I've done it and what works for me. Because what works for me probably won't work for you, because we have different goals. And so
you have different experiences, because like you talked about the golf course scenario with the house, the higher, richer type family. These houses that you're rehabbing and some of the ones you're keeping, are you doing a Section 8 type situation, or do they pay direct?
Both. So ideally, yes, I want all subsidized housing. So that's my demographic. And as far as the rehabs that I'm doing, because there's certain standards and things you have to get to a property, really anywhere, but every city has their own kind of set of rules, but it's, for the most part, can be roughly the same. But just certain standards that you have to do with your rehabs to make sure they clear the Section 8 inspections, because those are different inspections from your city and utility companies and all of that, which some people understand, some people don't. But yeah, ideally it is. That's what I have a handful of Section 8 and some other subsidized housing voucher programs as well. But it's one of those, some people don't understand that just because you have a property and you get it rehabbed and do everything for it to get approved for a Section 8 tenant, it doesn't mean you're going to get a Section 8 tenant in that property. That tenant still has to find that property to want to live there. So it's not, I can't just buy a house and be like, yes, I'm going to put a Section 8 tenant in here. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, which I think some people don't understand. Like when I have conversations, they think that they will automatically get guaranteed rent, so to speak, which isn't the case. So, but I do both. So
the COVID affect you getting paid on time at all?
I had one tenant last year that it did. So unfortunately, I was pretty fortunate that it didn't affect too many of my tenants. So I had one that she was paying. It was a unit that I needed to rehab anyways, and so she was 3 months behind. She was only paying $350 a month. Market rent on that unit will be $600 to $800 roughly. Now once it's rehabbed and everything. But so I just told her, leave the place clean, give the keys to property managers, and we'll call it good. Because me going after her for, I think she was behind $1,200, like that's to me, yes, that's a lot of money. I mean, I could do a lot with $1,200 in a property, but at the end of the day, like that's a significant amount for that individual. And I just, like I said, just turn the keys over, and because she was moving in with her daughter, to be closer with her daughter as well. So it worked out, but she was really the only one that was affected. She worked in hospitality and lost her job. And I think she was in her 60s probably, but nice lady. And I called her and just had a conversation, which I usually don't. I usually let my property managers handle those type of situations. I try not to have really one-on-one communication, but I had actually met her in person when I was in Cleveland at one point. And so I felt I needed to see how could we make it work for both of us. And it worked out. So
what markets in the United States besides Ohio or Cleveland do you like?
Yeah, so I still like Kansas. I'm not actively doing much in Kansas. I'm about to go into Detroit and do the exact same thing I've done in Cleveland. And then there's a couple other markets south as well. So Alabama will be a market that I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I've been trying to get into. But the other main focus will be Detroit. So I'll do the exact same thing that I'm doing in Detroit, or that I'm doing in Cleveland and Detroit as well. So I'll build my portfolio up a little bit, then I will start doing some, once I build my team and have everything in place there like I do Cleveland, I'll then start to do some flips where I'll sell turnkey rentals to other investors that maybe they're not interested in Cleveland, but I have Detroit as well, because they're very similar cities as far as like with what I'm doing and the type of properties I buy. There's a significant amount of those properties in Detroit, and I think I can make a big difference in some of those neighborhoods as well, and that's the plan.
How many total units, you can give me a ballpark, or you don't have to tell me at all, do you think you manage or you own?
Yeah, own well over 100.
That's phenomenal.
And
how long did it take you to build that up?
Well, so when I first started in Kansas, I've had I think I had 5 in the beginning, and then I took a few years off before I really bought anything else. I sold some, bought a few more, but it wasn't until 4 years ago that I really actively really started doing full time. But I've been investing 18 years. But to this scale and what I'm doing now, like I built that over 100 within a 3.5 year time frame. And so relatively quick. And there's pros and cons of me doing it that quick. And some people, I mean, buy 100, 200 plus units a year. I mean, but I'm buying your single families, your 2 units. I don't buy large stuff. I don't do syndication. It's me. I may have partners on some deals, but yeah, I mean, my biggest, I think now that I currently own is like an 8 unit. And then I have like some 6, a ton of 4s, or 5s. But the ones I flip are singles and 2 units, a couple 4 units. But that's kind of my, as far as unit range that I'd like to stay around. It's manageable. Prices are just easier for me to either raise capital or get funding for the type of stuff that I'm doing. Because a lot of the stuff that I buy, it has to be cash, because I mean, people aren't going to finance, especially on my duplexes and single families. I buy for $15,000, $20,000, $10,000, but I'm putting anywhere from 20 to 50 in it, 60,000 in those rehabs. But it's hard to find true traditional type of financing, or even hard money type of loans for those smaller loan amounts. It's easier to do private money on those type of scenarios. So that's why I've kind of stuck to that as well. It's
probably a faster process too.
Yeah, 100%.
So
yeah.
when you say private money, is that private? Is that a hard money loan, or what do you mean by private?
Yeah, private you. So private.
What happens if you need money for a project and maybe you're starting? Where would you get the money if you were going to start?
So great question. Depending on the project, I mean, family, friends, and network. So one of the things people can do is, and some know this, some don't, but self-directed IRAs can fund a real estate project. So there's some individuals that have funded some of my deals that use a self-directed 401 that they don't get penalized for, and that money's just sitting there as well. So if you do self-directed, you can invest in real estate. So some people know that they don't, but then it's also individuals that maybe just have money set in the bank that's not doing anything, that want to invest.
So somebody has an IRA and they take a percentage of the money out to do a real estate deal like you're talking about. You said they're not penalized. Let's say the deal goes through, and I would say it's a flip, for example.
Yep.
They get the money back with interest and it goes back to the IRA. Is that how it works?
Yep.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, you just have to set up the self-directed. So just have to find that custodian to help set that up. But yeah, a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, we've funded a few deals that way. Like I just closed on a 4-unit last week that private individual, self-directed. And that's how we utilized it. So yeah.
Have you ever lived in any of your apartment, your duplexes or your fourplexes at all at any time?
Have I lived in them? No,
Yeah.
no, I haven't. No, I mean, with the rehabs that I currently do and the type of finishes I'm doing, I mean, I would, because I make them when I first started doing these type of properties. I wasn't doing as nice of rehabs. I wasn't putting in, like, I put luxury vinyl planking in all my rehabs now. I got kitchens, I got bathrooms, so I make them to where probably a little nicer than what they actually need to be for the areas, just based on other rentals and things like that. I do a little bit extra because my goal there is to really help rebuild some neighborhoods, because there's some neighborhoods that are just not very run down, and they'll never get better if people don't do a better job rehabbing properties. And when you do a better job and put in that little extra work in those rehabs, it does 2 things. One, it helps the neighborhood and the values, but it helps attract a better quality tenant. It's going to help you get a little bit higher rent as well, or the top dollar for that area as well. And that's, I mean, based on just my experience and what I'm doing, that's how it's worked. Can I say that will work for everybody? No. I mean, I have a team that helps obviously make all of that happen with me, as far as property managers have to do their part to find those tenants, screen the tenants, and get the top dollar for those areas as well. But yeah, I try to make them a little nicer than all the others in the area now.
Well, you know, I had a great time chatting with you. I learned a lot. I hope our audience did too. Would you come on back sometime?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Maybe you can come on my radio show and co-host with me one of these times, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guarantee you we won't be broadcasting near a golf course.
Broadcasting what?
I guarantee we won't broadcast near a golf course.
Oh yeah.
We'll have a good time. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
So I want to get a copy of your book, because it sounds fascinating. Where can we get the book?
It's on. You can go to Amazon and find it. I don't know the exact link, but you could type in probably my name or Make Your Move, and it should hopefully pop up. Or go to my Instagram and send me a DM on my Instagram, which is investing_out-of-state. And I mean, anybody that listens to this that wants it, send me a DM and I'll send you a copy.
Very cool. Thank you, Brad Askren. I appreciate it. I look forward to getting your book, Make Your Move. Take action.
Yes. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
Look forward to talking to you again sometime, Brad.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Brad Askren for being on my show. And I want to thank my sponsors, because I have electricity being paid right now by them, and my all the things we get to have. Thank you to my sponsors: Indian Motorcycle of San Diego, Sequan Casino, the gym. George Jackson, thank you for your support. I also like to thank Attorney King, coming to you from Attorney King's studio. Also the IB Fitness, and Serrano's in Coronado, who makes a mean burrito. So all of you, thank you for tuning in, and everybody have a great day.